Here we go, mama.
Directed by Paul King, the newest film, Wonka, has finally hit theaters. Let's talk about it. Today I'll be sharing with you my thoughts on Wonka, led by Timothee Chalamet. In regards to Johnny Depp's version of Willy Wonka and Gene Wilder's version of Willy Wonka, I am not too sure how I feel. Well, I know how I feel. I love Gene Wilder's version. I grew up with that one. The Tim Burton version of Willy Wonka is interesting, to say the least. It's just very weird and out there. It's not a bad movie by any means. It's just not one of my favorites. And then this movie is very interesting. It's good. It is a good movie, but I wouldn't put it up there and say that it's one of the best movies or one of the best iterations of this story. So we are all very familiar with the story of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, all that good stuff. This is pretty much a prequel of the actual story of him, getting the actual factory and establishing it. At times, it just seemed a little too giddy for me, and it didn't really seem like there was any sense of stakes, if you will. Like, nothing seemed to be really wrong. I never was ever worried about anything. Whenever I saw that somebody was in a situation, I knew that they were going to get out of it, and I didn't know exactly how, but I knew it was going to happen at some point in time, whether it was going to be the next frame or within the next 2 scenes or something. Like, it was just going to be resolved. Calla Lane played Noodle, one of the little girl in this movie who is another main protagonist, and she did a really good job. I would say the acting was pretty good on all accounts. You also had Keegan-Michael Key, who was in this. Jim Carter, Rowan Atkinson, and many more starred in this movie. So there's a pretty good amount of people who are in this movie, and again, it wasn't bad. It's just it didn't really hit for me. A lot more times than not, whenever the singing happened, especially with Timothee Chalamet playing Willy Wonka, I could tell that it was just a happy-go-lucky, feel-good film. That's what it was, just a feel-good film. There's definitely elements about this movie that I do like. The humor was very well placed. I did not expect that I would be laughing as much as I did with this movie. There's absolutely nothing wrong with how it was made. I just think that this movie definitely could have been a little bit better. In regards to the pacing and the story, the pacing was all right. The story, I felt, was a little bit lackluster at times, especially with the idea behind him struggling to get his factory, the factory that we know of, that's Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. The story behind him struggling to get that and to find a means to pay for it and to get his own shop and everything, it just seemed like everything just was too easy to happen for him. He just fell into place, and again, it's part of the movie. It's part of the charm behind the movie or the magic of the movie, but it's just that I would have loved to see a version of like Wonka, especially since this is a prequel. I would have preferred to see a little bit more of a struggle, a little bit more seriousness at times when things happen. Like when I could tell that even this jokey movie kind of got serious. Those moments I was like, okay, well maybe now we're going to get a little bit more real. Now we're going to get a little bit more down in the dumps and try to shelve our way out, and it didn't happen. I'm not totally against this movie, but it just did not hit the mark for me because maybe I wasn't the complete target audience, and again, that's okay, but I enjoyed my time because I do love this story. One of the things I said a little bit ago about everything just seemed to work out or fall into place, the whole convenient factor, that's one of the biggest negatives that I have about this movie is the convenience factor. I know I've mentioned it a few times already, and the reason behind that is if you go and see this movie, you'll see exactly what I mean, that everything is just way too convenient. Some things there's just no practicality in, and the way how things happen or get resolved, or even simple conversations and things happening in simple conversations, things just happen that are just way too easy and convenient and just happen to be perfectly placed, and it's just like, okay, come on, you could have made it a little bit more realistic, just a little bit. So I mentioned the performances earlier, and one big positive that I will praise is the fact that these people committed to their roles, and they committed very well. I had no problem believing that a lot of these characters believed what they were saying, even with the true dramatics behind it and the silliness behind it, that they really believed and embodied it. So that is what kind of kept me in the movie throughout it. But overall, the story did not grip me the way how the Willy Wonka with Gene Wilder in it did. And even with Johnny Depp, again, that movie was very weird. So that movie is kind of like in its own category. That's not a bad movie, it's just a little off. But this movie just was okay. It was a good movie. It was enjoyable to watch. Would I go see it again in theaters? Probably not. If it comes on streaming, yeah, I might rewatch it one day with a group of people, you know, haven't seen it before, just to kind of get them to see it. It's a nice feel-good film, and definitely more for kids. So if you do have kids, take them. They probably will love it, because if I was a kid growing up nowadays and I saw this movie, I think that I would love it as a kid. Because when I was a kid, I saw Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka, and that was amazing for me. This movie is this generation's Willy Wonka, like Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka was our generation's Willy Wonka. So thank you guys for joining me for this review. I know it was kind of short and to the point. I don't really have much to say about this movie other than it was just a feel-good film. It was very well made in the aspect of the chemistry between the actors and actresses, and the performance was really good. And the comedic factor was there through and through, and it was really well placed and well done. If you aren't subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button and the bell next to it so you can get a notification anytime there's a new video. Thanks again for watching. Until the next one.